I think we'll get started here. Are we recording? Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's so great to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time to talk a little bit about campus ministry and get a yearly update on the state of Emmaus and the state of where we are at with church ministry on campus at the University of Montana, the joys, the challenges, and the opportunities. My name is Eric Huseth. I just started as campus pastor at Emmaus Campus Ministry August 1st, so I am a freshman myself and learning the ropes as we go. But one of the things, we haven't really done one of these presentations as much before, and I thought that it would be a really good opportunity to share with you some of our successes over 2023 and to talk a little bit more on what campus ministry is facing in these next few months and the opportunities that lie therein with that. So it's a joy to talk with you this afternoon about that. We will post this, because we've already gotten a couple emails, we'll post this presentation on our website, which is why it's being recorded, and so that you can kind of reference back to it if there's any other questions, and certainly please reach out to me or any of the board members if you have any questions. So I want to begin with a story that may be familiar to all of you. The board is going to roll their eyes because I'm actually going to read the same story that we read for our board retreat yesterday. And the reason for that, in being intentional about that, is because, our name Emmaus really takes its place with this story. And I firmly believe our mission really centers around this story. And so I want to share that with all of you this afternoon and as we begin our discussion of campus ministry. So we're reading from Luke, chapter 24. Now on that same day, 2 of the disciples were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all of the things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. And then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" Jesus asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, of course, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." And then he said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" And then beginning with the prophets and all, Jesus interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. And as they came near the village to which they were going, Jesus walked ahead as if he were going on. But the disciples urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So Jesus went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it and gave it to them. And then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And Jesus vanished from their sight. And then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" Ends the reading. Were not our hearts burning while he was talking to us on the road? I think that this very verse is really pivotal to where Emmaus is at. Sometimes we think, especially in the world of campus ministry, we're going along, we're going to classes, we're going to all of these different things, community organizing, and we don't realize that Jesus is actually there with us until after. And we turn back and we talk about that. And we think, we're not our hearts burning within us. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is to celebrate how Jesus was with Emmaus and has been and will continue to be. And how maybe we realize that, wow, Jesus was there when we actually didn't realize that God was there. And I think that that connects to the rest of our presentation this afternoon. But before I can start on kind of where we're at currently, we need to talk about the importance, the true importance of 2023 being a year of transition. And those in the board know what I am talking about. 2023 was the year in which we said goodbye to a beloved pastor and still just an incredible friend of mine, Pastor John Lund, who was doing this ministry for 18 years. It's incredible. John was not only a leader and continues to be a leader in Missoula here, but he was a mentor to many, not only just students, but to seminary interns, even to campus pastors who were across the nation. I went to a conference of pastors, campus pastors, just the other last year, and they talked about how John was such a mentor to them, teacher to them in their own ministries and in their own contexts. And so for that, I just want to say a big thank you to John Lund. For his vision was really what makes Emmaus what it is today. And that, I think, we can give thanks. And really, as his predecessor, I am in great sense of gratitude for him and his continued ministry. And it's kind of ironic that actually we're here at UCC, where John accepted the call to be lead pastor here at this congregation. But I think also we want to say thank you and goodbye to Kirsten Comstock, who was here as office manager, or Emmaus, for over 3 years, and did a lot of things in her tenure as well. I got to know Kristen when I was pastor at Our Saviors in Bonner, doing a couple of different things. We shared her for a little while, doing some things at Our Saviors, and Kristen did an incredible amount of work at Emmaus, and was really profound in kind of keeping the books together in a transition of COVID, when everything just seemed to be in transition. Kristen was really there for John, I know, for the board, and so for that, we say thank you to Kristen. And so both of these people, pivotal to Emmaus, moved on in 2023. And so that was a huge deal for the board and for the leaders of Emmaus and for the students of Emmaus to think about, okay, well, what is next? And so from this legacy, what I'm actually really proud to say is that at the end of 2023, we have the beginnings of a new team, A new transition team that is going to be permanent, is going to be doing work with students in profound ways. When I started, of course, on August 1st, there was really me and the board. But the person who was a real asset and pillar, who kind of came back and was doing some, at the time, temporary work, but who I tried to convince to stay on with us, was Bethany Youngblood. And Bethany brings just an incredible amount of experience. One of the unique things about Bethany is that she also was at Emmaus before Kristen in 2013. So that really lends a unique perspective of Bethany being very capable as a CPA-trained office or finance manager, but also knowing the mission of Emmaus and what Emmaus brings to the community. So I just am so grateful and thankful to Bethany for her willingness to stay on and for her willingness to be such an asset to our team in going forward with the finances. And so all of the reports that you will see kind of are from Bethany, working through that, and she is just incredible with numbers. And so thank you for that. But then after that, it was pretty clear that we needed to have somebody who was really on the ground and needing to help me with the residences, with the houses that need work, that need maintenance, that need actually vision for where we can go. And so that is where Caleb Copel comes in. And I'm just so excited. We got to know Caleb when he was working with the Faith and Climate Action Group as part of Emmaus. He's an alum of the University of Montana. And Caleb brings an incredible gift in passion for creation and climate work, as well as a learning and a sense of responsibility for facilities and knowing how facilities and environment can go together. And so that is where I'm just incredibly excited at working with him and his gifts. And he's also been incredibly active in our Faith and Climate Action Program, as well as the facilities side of things. And so that's where Caleb has been real strong in working with students and doing things on the facility sides of things that in many ways I didn't have time to do. So that was just really important to have Caleb as a teammate on that. But then we really needed somebody who was organized, who was visionary, and who was willing to continue the legacy of bringing the office along, shall we say. And it was just such a joy for Teresita to come into the life of Emmaus. Teresita's only been with us for a little over 2 months, I want to say. And one of the wonderful things about Teresita, she brings an incredible knowledge of office management skills, communications, social media, photography, all the things that just really we need to be effective as an office and as an organization at Emmaus. But what also is so fun and cool is that in our hiring of Teresita and sharing her, we get to share her with another church. So she is also office manager at Atonement Lutheran Church, just south of here, and has been, I think, a really wonderful advocate for them, as well as a teammate in figuring out, like, okay, how do we, in the future, how can we share resources together? I mean, what an asset that is, that we have all of these churches, partner churches kind of around our community, and we don't have to be siloed from one another. We can share resources, we can share staff, and Teresita is really our answer to that call for showing that this is really possible, and that this can be something that we can enter into together in incredible ways. So I'm just like deeply honored to share this stage with the 3 other staff at Emmaus, but also just looking forward to what this capable team is going to bring in the years to come. I think it's just going to be an incredible way to expand our capacity and looking forward to the future and be present with ministry to the students. So what have then, alongside of hiring these 4 individuals to be part of our team, well, what has been accomplished in 2023? Now, I would have to say, even though kind of I came in August, and I know John was kind of busy leaving at the beginning of 2023, we actually accomplished a lot. Some of the things that I just want to kind of like highlight real quick. First one is that we did a fall retreat with 11 students at Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp, which was awesome. And we had all of these just amazing memories of on the ropes course, and sailing. We had Richie from Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp actually with us this last Wednesday. We talked about how special that was to have our students there with him because fall gets a little bit lonely up at Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp. And so he was just incredibly enriched by the presence of the students up there. And one of the things that was a real honor to do also this fall, in light of a real dark, tragic time for our world, is to be a partner with other campus organizations to come together, as well as community organizations that come together for peace, and to represent a way in which we can show that peace can actually exist, and show the students particularly that peace can happen, especially in Israel-Palestine, such a just incredibly charged state of affairs right now, and it's just tragic to see what's going on there right now. But we were able to team up with Rabbi Mark at Har Shalom, along with the Muslim Student Association, along with several other organizations, Confluence as well, who brought together this vigil of peace that we had at the UC Center. And it was really remarkable to show that we can partner and lead in such a vital time. I also want to say that Confluence, many of you have known about Confluence for many years, and it's taken different forms and different visions. But one of the things that happened in 2023 is that Confluence formerly separated ways. This was always the plan, and I say this in a celebration, because Confluence was a ministry that was supposed to just live under the umbrella of Emmaus Campus Ministry for while it was getting incubated. And now it can stand on its own 2 legs. And so it has formally left the umbrella, if you will, the incubator of Emmaus, to be on its own, to be a ministry to the community on its own. And I think that is something really to celebrate, to show that Emmaus can not only be there for the students, but be this incubator of new ministries that are coming into the community and coming into the world. So that happened at the end of 2023. We also had an average of 15 students this fall semester, which was really remarkable given the fact that we were just all in transition. It was really wonderful to see several new students come and join our residences, as well as tabling on campus. We had a remarkable showing of new students. In fact, one of our student liaisons, our student president, Ian Johnson, is actually a student who does not live at Emmaus, but is a member of the campus community and comes in and takes part in the Wednesday nights. So that is, I think, a testament to how our time together on Wednesday night is so pivotal and worthwhile. And so it was just such a joy to be averaging 15 students on Wednesday nights in 2023. We also did a couple of housekeeping things that I think was really important for the organization itself. And one of those things was to establish leases. And for students and for the organization, one of the things that we kind of got out of the practice of was students coming and living with us and not having any formal agreement on when they would be leaving or when they would be coming. And so it was a tremendous stress on the organization to kind of figure out, okay, well, what are students doing? And how are they going to have a place? Are they going to leave during mid-semester? Are we going to advertise rooms? How is that all going to work? And so Caleb especially and Bethany did a lot of work devising a simple but straightforward lease that really allows our organization to plan ahead, allows for students to say, okay, I'm going to be here for this semester, I'm going to be here for this year, and allows some real stability in that, which helps, I think, both the student as well as our organization. So that happened in 2023. We also had an upgrade of our lock system at all 3 properties that Emmaus is in charge of. This was due to several incidences where we had folks or people that came in that were not authorized to come in, and there was some experiences for students that was feeling unsafe. And so, as a board, I'm really proud of the fact that the board really stepped up and said, no, we have to provide a safe community for our students. That's number one. So we upgraded the lock system that every student now has their own key code to get into the residences of Emmaus. And one of the things that we really spent a lot of time talking about is that we don't want Emmaus, because of its history, we don't want Emmaus just to be a lockdown dorm, right? We want to seek to be an important community partner, a place for retreats, a place for meetings, a place for community engagement. And so it is really our task to have people who can use Emmaus, who are with Emmaus, to continue to use that space, even with this lock system. So we are giving out codes to community leaders, to other folks who use our space so that they can have access to the houses, while also giving our students a safe place to live. It's always that continual balance, but it's something that I'm very, very passionate and very serious about providing safety for our students. You cannot have intentional community unless you provide safety. And that is something I think is really, really, really important. And something that we accomplished in 2023 and continue to learn from. And finally, one of the things that I think is really important is that we're trying to standardize some of the priorities that are in place for maintenance in our properties. So how are we going to afford, let's say, a new roof, or let's say new windows? How are we going to look at insulation? How are we going to look at things that these houses need and plan for that? And there hasn't been a system in place to put that together. So that's one thing that Caleb is really providing, is this a way of looking into the future, a way of planning, a way of evaluating, okay, what are our property needs and what are our priorities? So we're not just kind of slinging darts and being reactive in how we're caring for our houses. We want to be proactive, not reactive. And that's something that Caleb is really bringing in a huge way. That's something that really helps all of us, I think, out in that way. So, in 2024, with our successes also come challenges. And so I want to kind of get into what has been several challenges for our organization, for me, for our staff, for even our students. And to be as transparent about these challenges as possible, because several of you who are maybe members of our partner congregations may find some familiarity with these challenges, right? So I'm going to break down some of the challenges that we face at Emmaus, or that I think we face as Emmaus in 2024, into several categories. The first category, which I covered kind of briefly, is property. Property care and maintenance. Every single one of our houses, the 3 houses that we that we are in charge of. We own 2 of them, but we're also in charge of the Wesley House and stewarding that for our students who live there. Every single one of those houses were built before 1925. So, when you have a property that's built before 1925, that's close to 100 years old, you're going to have property issues. And we definitely had them in 2023. We had a gas leak that was rectified very quickly, but something that was very serious due to some workmanship by a company that we will no longer be using. But we had to hire a plumber to come in and do some changes to the gas plumbing in the ark to make sure that it was safe. Because there was some gas leaks that were part of that. So that was a big budgetary hit, obviously, for us, but something that was incredibly urgent that needed to happen. We also, as is typical with older homes that don't have as much insulation, we had frozen pipes in both the Emmaus house as well as the ark, which was really, really fun. And I say that in a very facetious way. We had particularly the ark, the frozen pipes led to a blockage, and so it actually started to leak down in one of the apartments, down in the basement, which leaked through the drywall, so we had to tear out several of the drywall pieces and track down that leak. We got new piping, as well as there was a little bit of a mismanagement or miscommunication with the plumber, who drilled up and hilariously, not hilarious at the time, but drilled up right through our dishwasher, and which was filled up with water, and we had a little Niagara Falls that were happening down in the basement apartment. So that was really fun, and but all of that has been replaced. All of that, we are en route to trying to replace that drywall. But again, frozen pipes is just a reality that we try to mitigate, but for the age of our property and our houses, things that we have to deal with. And I also just mentioned, of course, the locks that were updated, a major expense to the tune of about $5,000 for the all 3 properties. The keypads and locks for all of the single rooms and apartments for the students, but it's something that we felt like we had to do as an organization. So that took place in 2023. Now, of course, whenever you're dealing with houses, property, one of the challenges is, of course, that there are always needs that are in the future that you need to plan for. And so what are some of the things that need to be addressed soon? Well, to name a few, there are some electrical issues, particularly in the ark, upstairs. There's knob-and-tube wiring that's non-grounded for those electricians out there, and there are some interesting, let me say, fixes that are kind of temporary in that house that need to be addressed in the coming years. So how do we plan for that? We actually have some boiler issues in both the ark as well as Emmaus house. Some things that need to be addressed, some leaking issues, some things that are not urgent, but for us to care for our properties, some things that we actually need to look at in the months and years to come. Also, just the painting and maintenance of the siding, particularly at Emmaus house. There's some painting that's coming off of the house, and John had those houses painted about 10 years or so ago. So we may be due for another upgrade in our painting of those houses. So how is that going to look in the years to come? And finally, this is particularly relevant for the property at the Wesley house, but there's some bathroom issues that need to be, and kitchen things that probably need to be redone. Appliances, as well as just kind of a rethinking, particularly in Wesley house. There's the apartment kitchen there that really does needs some TLC and some work at upgrading. All of these things then form a real challenge to myself and our board on how are we going to pay for these things, right? How are we going to care for our property in a way where students feel comfortable and feel safe? So things that we don't have all of the answers right now, but things that I want to be as transparent as possible about, that our board is continuing to try to figure out how do we provide these for students. So the second bucket of challenges that I want to kind of cover real quick for 2024 is finances and revenue. And this, of course, should be no surprise, given, finances and revenue for any ministry, any church is probably a challenge at points, and we are no exception to that. So how I describe our current finances and financial position at Emmaus, we are strong because of all of you, right? All of the partner churches and all of those who are seeking to be in connection with us. You have made us strong in so many ways. But there are things both that have been in our control and out of our control, mostly out of our control, that are happening this year and next year from a financial revenue perspective to Emmaus. That has been, I'll call it a perfect storm of things that we are just trying to wrestle with and trying to seek some clarity about. So the first thing is we've had some major grants that are ending this year in 2024 or in 2025. The Lilly grant, the $150,000 that John applied for 5 years ago, is ending this year. And so that is a big deal when it comes to our grant funding, our way of a foundation for our organization. John and Emmaus did incredible things with that grant grant funding. So now our task is how are we going to replace some of that Lilly funding? How are we going to respond to that grant ending this next year? Because that was a significant amount of money that we're not going to see kind of coming in. But then the second thing that I think is equally as important is that Emmaus has really traditionally been seen as a ministry of the Lutheran Church and will continue to remain so, and that is a very important part of our mission. We in turn have been funded significantly by the National Lutheran Church in many ways. But due to a number of items, the National Lutheran Church, or ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, is having to downgrade their funding for us. And that is a big deal. In fact, Bethany can answer if you have any questions. We have seen already a unexpected decrease in funding from the National Church this year. So that is something that we continually need to watch and continually need to plan for. But it was also recently announced, and many of you may not know about this, but the National ELCA Campus Ministry Grant, which we rely on, is going away. And that grant has traditionally been in 2025. It has been to the tune of roughly between $25,000 and $30,000, depending on the year. So that's a big amount of annual income that we will not be receiving. There is an effort to revitalize the grant program at the LCA. I'm actually going to be tuning into a meeting this next Thursday to understand a little bit about how they're going to do that. But still, we need to plan for quite quickly the loss of this funding that's coming. And there are ways to do that, but it's going to be a real challenge that is kind of lending itself to this perfect storm. But I also want to say that the perfect storm has happened with many of you in terms of inflation. things are not getting cheaper last time I checked, in a lot of ways. And so we particularly are in a unique position because we own several buildings. So as a residential-based organization, we are very uniquely vulnerable to inflation of insurance, of property, of utilities, and that has been the case. So we are seeing a significant, from inflation, a significant uprise in costs, where we have not been able to totally cover our costs in property maintenance and care from the inflationary pressures that we have seen. So that has led us to needing to look at adjusting rents, something that I take very, very seriously, something that I think is very, very important, to not just we're not solely a landlord. That's not our total mission in life, but it's something that makes up a huge portion of our income and our revenue and our budget. And we need to continue to monitor that and continue to be aware of some of these things. And so 2023 was a very difficult year for us in inflationary ways. And so we're trying to come up with solutions to that. And so in that very way then, we have also seen a decrease probably from inflationary pressures, but also from in other ways, partnership churches have decreased their funding of us. And we have seen that in both actually the individual donors as well as churches. Again, there's multiple reasons for that, but that is very real for us, and that really affects our organization and how we operate with students. We really rely on that support of you all as partners, and but being in a uncharted waters of inflationary time, and the ways in which the churches are also struggling with their own budgets, that is affecting us in a huge way. So again, challenges that we are working with, and I also mentioned again the student rent that we are trying to equal out this idea of how can student rent cover most of the expenses that we need to have, but also how can we be below market, as is our mission. And so I'll get to that in a second. So lots of challenges in that with revenue. And so finally, the third kind of bucket of challenge, or the third way of phrasing the challenges of 2023 into 24, is what I'm kind of terming as we are building a new Emmaus organization. And what does that mean? Well, when John and Kristen left, they left a huge hole of institutional knowledge. And that is the case in many ways in transition, so that's not abnormal. But it was big for us because we are such a small organization to lose two staff that both were very, very involved, both had intimate knowledge of the inner workings of Emmaus, and they both moved on. So that then, of course, led to a challenge, but also an opportunity, which I am very intentional about seeing it as such, right? And I had to ask myself the question, what is the best organizational structure that will sustainably support both staff and students at Emmaus? And I wrestled with that with the board, with different colleagues, and I think my answer to that, at least right now, is, and why I feel so passionate and excited about this team that's here as well, is because I think the structure that is in place right now, meaning that we have a full-time executive director, campus pastor, myself, with a part-time staff team of 3 other individuals, a property manager, an office manager, and a financial manager, that lends itself to being incredibly capable, incredibly flexible, and incredibly dynamic in the structure, as well as sustainable, by the way. There was a lot of things that, and many of you know John. I love John. I love him as a good friend and colleague. But John did a lot of different things, from maintenance to community organizing to pastoring, and that is to be expected in the campus ministry world as such. But you also have to be sustainable in that. And so for me, in my personality and my gifts, I feel that having a team of capable individuals is the best way forward to have an organizational structure. But it comes, of course, with the challenge of added payroll costs, added people to our staff list, and figuring out, okay, how do we do this, and how are we sustainable? One of the things and why I feel so passionate in turning this from a challenge into an opportunity is that it actually gives me more time to do the things like applying for grants, like reaching out and being a part of churches, being with donors, and seeking out opportunities of other funding that will actually be a payoff, instead of doing the one kind of shoestring type of thing that is in many ways can lead to sustainability issues and burnout. And that's something that I want to make sure that we seek to avoid at all costs. So this structure then, really, of myself and 3 other staff members is tremendously exciting when it comes to where do we go from here? On our walk to Emmaus, where is 2024 leading us in opportunity? And so I want to break this down in several other different categories. The first one being for students. We already are seeing, and one of the things that I am really passionate about is doing coffee dates. Getting together with students, being a part of their lives on campus. This structure of staff allows me to do more of that, which is, I think, what the board at Emmaus hired me to do. What you all want me to do is to be with the students, to be with them, to talk about their spiritual identity, to talk about their spiritual questions. And we are seeing some early signs of some real success with that. Our weekly attendance is increasing on Wednesday night, which is really, really exciting. We get to, and it is the opportunity then to continue to expand these pastoral coffee dates, these lunches, these one-on-one, face-to-face, in order to then try to build out our student leaders, right? That's the next step. Now that we have our staff, now how can we get our staff to work together to mentor student leaders and ways of being with them more than just in a pastoral way, but to have them really take ownership of this organization. And that's something that I think this structure allows us to do in a huge way, even in a broader way than we were able to do before. And that's what's really exciting. And also one of the things that I've been really interested in is we get to then, in 2024, we get to experiment with ritual. And that is something that I'm really, really passionate about, not only as just a pastor, but as a seeker of faith, on what is the intersection of ritual and worship, and how is that connected to the student's life? And one of the things that I've found, and this is something that I am going to be keeping track of, but I want to share this at this presentation. I've been keeping track of some attendance numbers. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is do an every other week, do a ritual, disciple-based week, so we'll do a worship type of thing at our Wednesday nights, and then do a discussion-based topical thing the next Wednesday. I try to kind of go every other week with that. And one of the things that I'm finding, which I'm still not exactly sure what to do with, but we are getting probably a 20% bump in attendance on ritual Wednesdays than we are topical Wednesdays. And I have a lot of theories about that, but I don't need to get into that tonight. But I think that says something about the opportunities that lie with us, and where we can go with students, especially when we engage students to help lead those rituals. Currently, I have 2 students in our Emmaus world right now, our Emmaus community, that are seriously discerning seminary. And I've been able to give them each chances to lead ritual. It has been very, very impactful for them. And hopefully we can kind of continue that in that experimentation of what worship means for us. And also to increase and beyond just the ritual, to increase the number of service opportunities. And John was tremendously gifted at this. And that's something that I really want to bring back to Emmaus. And how do we connect students with making a difference in the world? And how do we make sure that they can have an impact? And one of the things that we're trying to do for future years is try to give some teeth. We say as Emmaus, when we advertise our rooms, we say, please come and live at Emmaus. We are two things. We are a faith-driven community, Christian tradition, that meets every Wednesday, but also we're a community that does service projects. And traditionally, that's been a very loose thing. And you can imagine as a student, you're just like, well, what do I do as a student? I don't know, a service project. Great, that sounds great, but what does that mean? And we haven't necessarily had a direct answer to that recently. I mean, that's something that I really, really want to change in order to really seek to live out the fact of students coming to live with us are also expected to do service in the community, because that's what our faith requires of us, right? So there's a few ideas that are percolating up here for that very thing, and that really connects to the second batch of opportunity that is here for us and for our community. One of which is an idea that I am trying to get off the ground, which is in partnership with Missoula Aging Services, looking at ways to say, how can we connect students with our elders, particularly elders in our churches? And Missoula Aging Services is a tremendous partner, could be a tremendous partner in this, because they're already set up to do the work of taking volunteers to help pair students up with elders in our congregations, in our churches. So the idea would be is that a student would go and would do a service project of some kind. Maybe they would rake leaves or clean the kitchen or something like that. For particularly those who can't get out, for seniors that maybe in our churches are shut-ins, maybe they can't even get to worship. And yet they would be both trained as well as supported to come in, and every month they would have a lunch. They would have a coffee. They would have a conversation with this elder. And they would build a relationship with one another alongside doing work. That's something that I'm working on some grant funding for, as well as something that has Missoula Aging Services is super excited about. So that is like really, really, hopefully in 2024, we can kind of get going in that. We also have our Faith and Climate Action Program, which has been incredibly active in the past, is going through some discernment. Where do they want to be? How do they want to be and feed the students along with making a difference in a changing climate. And leaders are, as a matter of fact, are gathering this next week, trying to start that discernment. What does that mean? One opportunity is that we already have student energy to come and do internships, to come and be a part of that group. And I think that is exactly what should drive us at Emmaus, to be able to connect students with programs, to learn and to go and do the work. And so that Faith in Climate Action, I think, is a pivotal program that I really want to seek to support and build out as we go forward here in the next year or two. There's also real opportunity with partners beyond, not just churches, but other ministries. And dare I say, I know cats is a bad word in this community, but JP in Bozeman is doing terrific things with the Lutheran campus ministry at Montana State. And he and I have struck up just a fabulous relationship, friendship. And you know, we were talking about this idea, well, could we have trips together? Could we take Lutherans from Bozeman and Lutherans from Missoula and go and serve the world? And go and learn about faith together. And we're just beginning conversations about what that would look like and what that would mean. I think that is incredibly powerful, an incredible opportunity to be a part of in that respect. And JP has my utmost respect in that. And then finally, many of you are also aware that, you know, our congregations just in Missoula, our Lutheran congregations, are in a period of transition, many of them. And it is something that I think is part of the Emmaus ethos of lending some creativity, some ways of thinking about this that maybe are outside the box. And so what I have helped do with several other leaders in the community is to develop what we're calling the Missoula Lutheran Dream Team. And that is a team that is trying to meet once a month to think about ways of partnership, ways of sharing resources, ways of doing church differently that is sustainable for all of our Lutheran congregations. I think this could be actually a good blueprint for our other sister churches who are not Lutheran as well. How do we be church together in this new world? And so that in itself can also be an opportunity for Emmaus to lend some leadership, Emmaus to be a partner in this new way of church. And finally, opportunities for sources of revenue, which are actually, I think, out there in many ways. So the first that we're trying to be as transparent about as possible is that we need to bring rents into alignment with where they need to be in order to cover inflationary pressures on our organization. And that's just a fact that we need to do. Rents have not been raised significantly or adjusted really significantly since the early teens, 2012, 2013, 2014. That has really affected how we are able to do these maintenance projects, which I just covered. So rents shouldn't cover the entire budget, but they should cover, at least I believe, our ability to care for our buildings and our facilities in order to provide a safe and meaningful space for students to live and students to learn. And so I have embarked with Caleb and with Bethany and with the board on a very in-depth discernment about where we are at with rental changes. This has been a months-long process. We've done a lot of research. I myself have been contacting the University of Montana Housing. We've reached out to the sororities and fraternities as well as talked. I had a conversation with County Commissioner and the Director of Housing at Missoula City about fair market rate and fair market value. Because as I mentioned before, and I just want to hit home this important fact, that we are not just landlords, We are seekers. Our mission is to provide safe space for community. And because of that, we have a mission in this world to reach students that can't afford market rent. And so we need to be, I believe, way below market value, market rate value, but also we need to seek as much as possible to be below fraternities, sororities, and the University of Montana. And I am very happy to say that even with our rate adjustment, we continue to remain way below market rate. We are below what the University of Montana charges for housing of similar apartments or dorms, and we are also below fraternities and sororities in our neighborhood. So we are, as a matter of fact, still the lowest as far as rental rates. We're still the lowest in our neighborhood, offering the lowest. We have the lowest rates offered to students in our context. That's very important to me. And that is something that we really try to hit home with students, and also from a pastoral capacity, are trying as best as we can to adjust rates in a way that are as easy as possible for our students. And how that's going to look is we are going to honor all the old rates for the rest of the school year. Nothing is going to be changed until June 1st. And then, I have a sheet of rates that we are trying to be public about for all of our rooms. Every different room and apartment has a different rate, which I think is also very valuable. So students can choose between singles and apartments, a diversity of ways of living that they can afford and that they can be a part of our community, which I think is very, very powerful. And so we are going to be raising rates. So the amount that we are changing it's hard for me to just say in general, because every room is changing at a different rate, and every apartment is changing at a different rate. But whatever that rate of change is going to be, starting in the fall, we're going to start June 1st, we're going to raise that 50% of that gap to allow students to try to pay for the summer at a 50% of the change higher rate than what they were paying here this school year. And then beginning September, we're going to then have everybody bumped up to the new rates for all rooms and for all apartments starting in the fall. And I'm happy to, I know Bethany and I'm happy to answer any questions that might come up for that. We want to be as transparent as possible about how we are trying to really reach students where they are at and be good stewards of our property. So that's the rental change and adjustment. But there's also different ways of looking at, okay, how do we not just pay attention to rent, but how do we see opportunities for revenue and fundraising going forward? First off is that there are several grants that I'm applying. March is going to be a big month for applying for grants here that I'm already kind of working on and already kind of planning for. To apply for several grants within the Lutheran context, as well as even grants that we haven't even applied for yet, but we'll do so because I think we have a decent shot if we pitch that correct, especially in this student mentor campaign, along with different property ways of caring for property. I think we have a good shot at several of these. So that's going to be something that we're going to be really active in doing this next year. I am also going to be a presence in our partner churches as much as possible. I've been trying to do a once a month getting out to all of our churches. I've gotten out to about 8 thus far. I'm hoping to get out to our broader partners, even in Butte and in Kalispell and beyond, even towards eastern Montana. It would be great for me to get there to your congregation, to share, to lead worship, to talk about campus ministry and the importance of our students and the importance of the future of the church with you all. So that's something I'm very, very committed to doing with you all. But also, there are ways in which that I think we can be creative in doing fundraisers that we haven't thus far. Our Oktoberfest is something that we're going to continue to have, but we're gonna change it up a little bit. We already have a date, October 6th, 2024. We are going to have that in a new venue this year. We're going up to the Rattlesnake. We're going to be at 10 Spoon Winery on October 6th, and we're going to knock on wood and pray to God that it's going to be great weather. If not, that's fine too, but I'm hopeful because if any of you have not been to 10 Spoon Winery, the venue is incredible, and it just has this whole area where we can be on the lawn, we can have some family-friendly activities, we can do all kinds of things that we weren't maybe able to do before. So keep up to date with that on Oktoberfest. We are also really trying to push a relatively new fundraiser, and that is Missoula Gives. We've done Missoula Gives in the past, but that is something that we really want to focus on. Putting a video together, talking about the students, talking about the ministry we do, talking about the importance of campus ministry in the social media context. And that's something that Missoula Gives, which naturally it attracts smaller but newer donors. That is something that I want to really, really hit hard and think about in how we're doing our annual fundraisers. I think Missoula Gives has a lot of opportunities in that respect. But plain and simply, I want to be with you face to face. And for those of you who have given to Emmaus in the past, I want to have coffee with you, have lunch with you, talk about the importance of campus ministry. Where do you feel that campus ministry is going? Because that is something I want to hear from you about, and also want to work with you on saying, okay, well, what new ideas can we come and bring to our students and our community? That is just incredible. So I'm incredibly passionate about that, and hopeful that we can, in 2024, start that process of meeting together and dreaming. And finally, I'm just going to put this idea in my head, and I can't claim actually that this was my idea, because it wasn't. It actually was John Lund's idea. But I want to think about in some of the years to come. We may put a campaign to this, but the Emmaus House has a tremendous opportunity to actually add an apartment up above the back garage, in coordination with the other apartment and student residents there. And this was John Lund's idea. He was really passionate about it. He was telling me about it before he left, and it was great to hear what he's been thinking. He's been thinking about that idea for many, many years. And I have also gotten excited about that idea, because another apartment for Emmaus Campus Ministry can do a lot of things for us, not only just revenue-wise, but also can be a place where we can have a dedicated seminary intern, which is pivotal, I think, to the mission of this organization. Or we can have a community organizer living there, or we can have another person, another student, several students living in that apartment that can add to our community. There's lots of things that we can dream and things that we can do with another apartment, another space, and that is something that I want to really think about as an opportunity going forward as we talk about revenue and as we talk about opportunities for that. And so, in wrapping up, I want to end with another verse, because we're talking about this idea of Emmaus on the journey, finding Christ in that. But I also want to end with an Old Testament vision of this. Right? And this is from the book of Jeremiah. If any of you know a thing about Jeremiah, you'll know that it's a very dark book. It's not a light read by any stretch. Prophet Jeremiah was living in Jerusalem when well, not entirely Jerusalem, but in Israel when it was invaded by the Babylonian Empire. And it forms this very dark time for Israel as they were seeking to understand where was God when great change was coming. In fact, horrible change. Not the change that I want for Emmaus, but the change that is, okay, there's these invaders that are coming into my land. What does that mean? And so Jeremiah was at the crux of this change and this transition. And he really, the whole book is about how do we see ourselves as faithful followers of God and seeing God in ways that we didn't expect. And as I mentioned, the book is very dark, but at the end, Jeremiah gives these snippets of hope that I think are very valuable for us, because many of you may feel, as do I at times, this anxiety. Things are changing. What is happening? Where are we in ministry? Where's my church? What's the future of the church look like? But realizing that Christ, of course, is with us even when we don't know it, as the Emmaus story tells us, but also as this passage tells us in the book of Jeremiah. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. Then when you call upon me and come and pray to me, I will hear you. When you search for me, you will find me. And if you seek me with all your heart, I will let you find me, says the Lord. Extraordinary. I will let you find me. A hope with your future. So that's what I want to still all of you with, is that I have great hope. I have hope in our students. I have hope that Christ is going to meet us with all kinds of things that we are going to do this next year, ways that we had no idea. But for that, I take great hope and pride and a sense of excitement. And so I hope that you will join me in that Emmaus journey, and that you will seek to venture with all of us as a staff and as a board in that journey together as we discern where Christ is leading us next. And with that, I'll take any questions or clarifications. And thank you for coming and being a part of this whole thing. And Bethany, do you have anything that you want to clarify?
The rental increase for the step-up is for existing tenants.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you for that clarification. So Bethany is just saying that the rental increase is for existing tenants that we have honored. So anybody new that's coming into our community are already paying. We have several individuals who came in the second semester, for example, and they are already paying the new rent, the new rate. And so that adjustment, of course, is for current students in the community. I just want to make that very clear. Thank you, Bethany. I also want to say, because I was asked this actually just a few days ago by a generous individual who's been part of Emmaus for a long time, about what our applications are like. And we actually already have several students that are new students that have reached out that want applications for either the summer or the fall. So we are already starting to take that up, which is very, very, very exciting. So the energy is there. People know about Emmaus and want to live in our community. So that's, I think, a big deal. Yes?
So I know that Emmaus is rooted and open. So rooted in the Lutheran tradition and open. So my question has to do with other sources of grants and denominational funding. So are you thinking about, okay, I'm Presbyterian, so if you tapped into the Omaha Theological Seminary Fund, have you tapped into the Episcopalian funds,
yes.
In grant world, or have you thought about Wabash Center?
Yes.
Yes. So how does campus ministry fit into education and research projects, etc.?
Yes. fantastic question. For those who are online and not haven't heard that question, the question was, what are other sources of funding, maybe grants, maybe other ways to get funding from other sources that are not in the Lutheran, we'll call it the Lutheran world? And fabulous question. So to answer that, we have, to some extent, we have, to answer that as succinctly as I can, we have done some of what you're talking about. We do get a Episcopal grant. We have a great partner at Holy Spirit Episcopal. We have gotten in the past some UCC funding as well. But I think that the opportunity that you are laying out is before us. And I don't think that we have done as much. We could do more to seek out other churches, other funding, because we are an ecumenical ministry. Yes, we are based in the Lutheran theology and history, but we are supporting, and several of our most ardent supporters are not Lutheran. And so to tap into those opportunities in 2024, I think, is of the utmost importance. So that is some of the work that I'm aware of. Some of the things that you highlighted, Karen, but not all of them. So I think that conversations with our non-Lutheran partners is pivotal, and I'd love to have a beer or coffee with you to talk more about that. So fantastic question. Yes. Yeah.
If I have a Thrivent action plan thing, is there a way you can contact me for that?
Fantastic. Thrivent action grants. Oh, I love them. So for those of you who are tuning in online, Thrivent action grants are things if you are a Thrivent member. So that's the crux. You need to be a member of Thrivent Financial, which means that you need to have some financial product with them, being insurance or mutual fund or some financial product thereof, similar. And if you do have that and you are a member of that organization, you can apply for a $250 credit card, which is very, very helpful to Emmaus Campus Ministry, and something that we rely very much on. In fact, we have several grants that we're going on spring break this next, in a few weeks, to San Francisco, California, and I rely very heavily on some of those Thrivent Action grants to help cover the basic costs of food and cars and all of those things and travel. So for those of you who are Thrivent members or seek to be a Thrivent member, you can apply to be an associate member. It's a little bit fuzzy, but if you are not currently a Thrivent member and wish to be, why don't you talk to me about that? Because the process isn't exactly the most straightforward, but it's something that you can do. It's like $25 a year, and then you will have access to one $250 Thrivent Action credit card, and that is tremendously helpful to us. So come and talk to me, and I will get you connected. Many of you have already talked to me about different things, and many of you have actually helped fund us for other things. So thank you for that. And a great question. Thrivent Action grants, super, super important to the ministry that we do. Well, once again, thank you for taking this time for out of your afternoon, and thank you to our board, thank you to our staff for the recording, our engineers behind the camera, thank you, and I just am tremendously grateful to be on this journey with you. So it is a wonderful way to be an expression of Christ to our students in our university community. So may God be with us in this journey as we venture forth. Amen. Thank you all.